Testing, 1, 2, testing. Y'all, we apologize for being late. It was Jay's fault. Yes, I'm throwing him under the bus because when I was late, he threw me under the bus. So the reason why we're late is because of Jay. I just want to put that out there before we start this show. Now, anyway.
It be your own people.
Happy Tuesday. We are so excited to have you guys back this week after a long holiday weekend. I hope everyone had a wonderful and relaxing Memorial Day weekend and is getting back adjusted to work. I'm picking up on some feedback. I don't know from who. Probably Jay, because he was late. Everybody else already been on here.
You know what, boy? You coming after the kid today.
I am. Let me know when we're ready to officially get started here, sir.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Well, without further ado, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Tit for Tat podcast. My name is Carolyn. I'm one of your hosts.
I'm Jay Boy. I'm the tit for tat, and she's the tit for tat. And we gonna go tit for tat because we got some more tit for tat. What's up, tit for tat nation? Let's go, baby.
Oh, wow, that's good. And also joining us tonight, again, special guest Jay Mitch. So happy to have you. Married with three kids, right? Married with 3 kids.
It's grown though, so I can't claim them on the taxes, so I don't call them kids no more.
They don't count.
Damn.
They ain't bringing dough. They don't count no more. We love it. And then also, you guys, I am so excited to have on the show tonight Dr. B. She is so amazing. Energy's off the chain. And I'm going to let her talk about who she is and what she does. And then we're going to get started. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me back. I swear last time we talked for like 2 hours and I was just bouncing off the walls all night long. So thank you. I really had a lot of fun. So as she said, my name is Dr. B. I am a certified sex therapist and I practice in the DMV. I am licensed in Maryland, DC, Virginia, and Georgia. So I do this a little bit of everywhere. There are not too many of us certified Black sex therapists, period. And then in the area, we get even smaller. So I love what I do. I love my people. And, this is where I am. I've been doing this. I've been a therapist for almost 20 years now. I know I'm only like 25, but it happens.
Girl, you look great. Okay.
Thank you. But no, I've been doing this almost 20 years. For about 15 of those 20 years, I was an adolescent trauma therapist. So I've worked in some of the craziest places. If you guys watch The Wire, I was at Baby Bookings for a couple years. I was at Hickey for a couple years. Then I came over to DC and I've been in their court system, school system, detention center, you name it. I've been transitioning to a lot of sex work, sex trauma, and then the sex therapy that does get a little fun. So I get couples, I get individuals. We're talking premarital, we're talking marriage counseling, we're talking divorce. And people just like, look, I want to get in my whole phase, but I want to be healthy with my whole phase. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So that's where I am now.
Wow, that covers so many things. So we are, again, just so happy and excited to have you on this show. And, whenever I thought about doing this topic, and it wasn't my idea, somebody reached out to me, but my initial reaction was, I don't know. That's kind of like, controversial. It's kind of like a taboo type of topic. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, this could probably really help some people. We need to discuss this. And I think that in our community, we shy away from discussing the tough topics. And I don't think that's a good thing. And this show is about bringing us together, helping us move forward as a culture. So we need to be discussing the hard things as well. So we're going to get into dating, sex, and STDs. That's the topic tonight. And I want to just start off with, and this is a question for Dr. B. Why is sex, STD, sexual health, why is that such a negative thing? Why are people so afraid to talk about these things?
A lot of it is because it's a few different things, but the biggies are that, one, it is something that should happen in the home and people don't want to hear about it. They just feel like that is too private and it's not something that we speak of. But when we do that, we miss the education, we miss, the happiness, the pleasure, the fun, we miss a whole lot of it. But sex is one of those issues that has always been private and home. It is when you start talking to people, especially in Black and brown communities, it is very culturally a taboo. We don't talk about it because we're not supposed to say that this kind of stuff brings you pleasure. That's not what it is. You are supposed to have sex to make babies, and that's it. Like, they want us to know the mechanics, but they don't want us to know the pleasure part. So it's always been seen as this in the house between you and your partner thing. We also have the issues that sex isn't for women. So if half the population isn't talking about it or isn't supposed to be enjoying it, then there's no reason to talk about it. Especially, again, Black and brown communities, when we talk about sex and we talk to women and girls and ladies, we say things like sex is for your husband, or you're giving it to him, or you're saving it for him. That implies that it's not for you. So we don't talk about it. We don't ask questions. We don't say, should I be having orgasms? Should I masturbate? How do I know if everything is okay? Because it's technically, in that sense, not for you. Your job is to keep him happy and to make sure that he is pleased. So when you have half the population that feels like sex is not for them, we don't talk about it. So, we get into a whole bunch of different things, but when it comes down to communication. We're not communicating. We are not saying, hey, what is sex to you? What is sex to you? Because those answers are always going to be different, but we've never been in a position that we're open enough to talk about it. Think about it. When you first started having sex or learning about sex, this isn't something you go to your aunties or grandmas or dads at. Like, you weren't like, hey, how do I get pleased? How do I enjoy pleasure? How do I please them? That's not the conversation. Even if you got caught masturbating, you got in trouble. It wasn't okay, just shut the door. Some people. It wasn't like one of these, okay, shut the door, we shouldn't see about it, throw the sock in the laundry. It was, don't do that nasty stuff in my house, God is watching, and all this other stuff. So it became this issue that we were not talking about out loud. So a lot of stuff happened. And that's why we have all these STDs and STIs, because we're not communicating, we're not talking.
Right. And I think back to my childhood. My parents did not talk to me about sex. So when you're not learning about something, then you're going into it blind. And so you're just learning as you go. And as you know, with sex and STDs, you can make one bad mistake. You can have unprotected sex one time and get pregnant or get something. And so I think it's very important that we start in the home as far as parents talking to their children about sex and making a conversation that's comfortable.
Absolutely. And we need to start a lot younger than what we think we do. Most people wait until teenage years, maybe 12. Absolutely not. We need to be starting as soon as we're able to tell them that nobody should touch your private parts. Those are the conversations that we should be having. We should be starting at 2 years old, having them name their private parts with the correct names and making sure they understand what consent means. And that if they get pleasure from it, what that means and how to handle that. A lot of kids have accidentally found masturbation through water in the shower, through rubbing up against something. Look at Jason. Through rubbing up against something. It is something that is very pleasurable. And a lot of people are so scared when a 6-year-old boy is running around rubbing his penis. But let's not act like it doesn't feel good. It feels good. And instead of having that conversation, we kind of scar them. And it makes them retract. And they're like, okay, I don't talk about this out loud. This is not something that I'm allowed to ask questions about or say anything about.
How, as a parent, because there's some parents on here tonight, what are some strategies or how do you recommend that parents approach this kind of conversation with their children?
So there are many different ways, but I just remind parents just to have age-appropriate language and have that conversation with your kid. Never stop having the nobody touches you conversation and the consent conversation. It will evolve into other things. You start getting into puberty, you start getting into menstrual cycles, you start getting into wet dreams. So it'll mature as you go along. But as long as you have that open dialogue, your child feels safe with you when stuff happens to say, what is this? Or, get prepared for it. So a lot of people wait until a young lady has her period to talk to her about her period. No, she should have been known about that. remember the movie Carrie? I hate to use that as an example, but did you see how scared she was? And she was like, I don't know what this is. This is what people are going through. They think something is wrong. So whenever they think that conversation needs to be had, started like 4 years before that, age appropriate language, and let them ask questions.
I love that. James, you have 3 adult children.
Yeah.
Did you have the sex talk with your kids? And if you did, at what age or what point did you start having that talk with them?
We had to talk with them, but it wasn't the talk. It was a ongoing conversation as they grew older and older. Like Doc said, it started with this is this body part, this is that body part. It went to, don't let no one touch it, blah, blah. It was that at first, and then eventually, once they got to junior high, junior high, then the conversations got into what urges you might have to do with those body parts, and the feelings you get inside, and you liking another person and them liking you, and what you want to do with them, and what they want to do with you, and vice versa. And the conversations were just ongoing. I mean, I'm still having these conversations with them as adults, because there's still stuff that they don't know until they either get told or they find out through experience,
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's get into sex and STIs, because I was doing a lot of research, and I came up with some very interesting statistics. So one of the first statistics that I want to point out, and I think this is according to the CDC, if I'm not mistaken, 80% of Americans have had or currently do have an STD. What do you guys
What
think about
percentage?
that? 80. Either have had
80?
80.
As in 8 out of 10?
Yes, 8 out of 10 have either had or do currently have an STD.
Americans.
Yes, 80% Americans. I guess you find this statistic shocking.
A little bit.
Why do you find that so shocking?
8 out of 10 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add 4 more
Jay's
people
at a loss
to
for words.
add 4 more people to this conversation. We all done had an STD.
Yeah, 80%.
That's what it's
8 out of 10. So with that being said, okay, so yeah, it's a little high, it's a little shocking. I get that. But with that being said, people are still very much dating, and people are still very much having unprotected sex. And so as a result, the STD rates have been on the rise.
Are STDs going up in the senior citizen arena?
Yes.
So that's always a high one. Always.
Always. What?
Yeah. Jay, what are you so...
No, if you go to a nursing home.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God. It's Jerry sitting up in that thing. Like, no, senior citizens have always had a high rate of STDs and STIs. And it's for a couple different reasons. One, their communities are usually smaller. So if we are looking at like nursing homes or, day programs or something like that, but we're also looking at the idea that they're not worried about pregnancy. So that whole idea of condoms and protection, it kind of goes out the window. But they're usually recycling the same people over and over again. So by the time somebody finds out that they have something, 8 other people have been added.
Grandpa Willie passing it around.
Basically.
He in the nursing home slinging dick.
Yeah. Absolutely. But the nursing home seniors have always been high. Actually, our age group is actually on, we're actually getting lower. Where
really?
Maybe because we're getting married.
Oh, I know why that is. Women are abandoning men at an excessive pace. If you listen to this podcast, you will know and see that women have had it.
And I believe it. And that might be it. Abstinence might be the thing. But the scary part is the group that's rising is 13 to 24-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Oh.
13. Yeah. So that's why I said, whatever age you think we should be talking to kids about sex, you need to start 4 years earlier. Because by the time you're having these conversations, they've already had sex.
Yeah. And speaking of that age group, I work with teenagers, and when I was researching some stats and I saw that, I texted my principal and I said, hey, do we have health education, sex education program at our school? And the answer was no. So how are we a high school and we have no sex education in our schools? And I'm sure we're not the only one. That's just my school personally. But if I were to do more research, I'm sure there'll be a lot more schools here in the DMV area that don't actually have a sex education program. And, she assured me that we will be having one for the upcoming school year, which makes me happy. But I just think about the fact that the STD rates are higher amongst our demographic, amongst Black and brown communities. And we're not educating our kids. So I see no end to it,
Yeah.
Get spicy. Come on, Carol. Let's get spicy right quick.
Let's get spicy. Go ahead.
Doctor,
What's that?
if you have an STD and you're trying to date, when do you tell the person you date?
So that's a very, very tricky one. The only thing I can tell people is before you have sex. Some people are.
Wait a minute. When you say before we have sex, you mean like we at dinner and you feel like it might go somewhere that night and you tell me at dinner? Or you talking about we in the bed bucket naked under the sheets and I'm about to go, we about to go to Pound Town and you like, pause, yo, I got herpes simplex.
Let's go back to dinner. Before any clothes come off. Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
Dinner time. Okay.
It's really hard because some people, acquire STDs through trauma. And, to have that conversation or have had trauma when they've had this conversation before. So I can't tell you when to have it. I just say before the clothes come off, that conversation should be had. And we have to realize too that there are laws now that, so right now, it is a felony in 4 states to pass along HIV or STI. But it is a misdemeanor in about 20 other states. So in Maryland and Virginia, it is a misdemeanor. In DC, they don't have any laws right now. There are civil ways that you can go against someone. But in DC and Maryland, if you do not inform your partner when you knowingly have an STI, including HIV or AIDS, it is a misdemeanor. And there are fines, there are jail times, all kinds of things. DC does not have anything right now. But California right now, I believe it's the only one that's holding steady as a felony. There's a couple other states that have gone back and forth with it on their books. But yeah, we're getting to the point where you can absolutely prosecute people for not saying that it's STD or STI.
I did post a video of a California lawyer kind of going over the rules there and saying that you could, sue someone. You could be face criminal penalties, for knowingly passing on or not telling a partner that you have an STI. And I'm surprised that DC is behind the curve on that, because every statistic I looked up, DC is in the top 10, everything,
So it goes to this whole decriminalization of, disease and mental health, sex work. DC was one of the very first, and I can't call it a state, but very first areas that decriminalized sex work. We have what we call a Hope Court in DC that I've worked with as well, where
whoa. A what?
It's called Hope Court.
With a P.
Yes, Hope.
H-O-P-E.
I knew he was gonna say something about that.
Man, I thought you said the whole court.
Yes. But what it does
I used to live on a block where there was nothing but hoes. So I was like,
DC still has strolls. People know exactly where to go. Oh,
there's one on K Street right now, Northeast.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you've heard
Yeah,
Allegedly.
DC was getting overwhelmed, so they had to decriminalize sex work. So we do this thing called Hope Court, which basically is saying that sex work can be considered legal work, but there are also some mental health and some trauma issues there as well. So they send them to certain therapists to get therapy and hopefully to get them out of the sex work, especially if they think they've been coerced or they're trafficked or something like that. So the decriminalization of it has come with a lot of other things with it, but that also allows for people who are maliciously doing it to not be prosecuted. So.
All right, so we at dinner. You tell me, Angel, I'm gonna pretend we on a date,
All
and
right.
you have an STD.
Okay.
We at dinner.
Why I gotta have it?
You like Jay.
Because you're the expert. We need you to tell us.
I'm like, you like Jay. I think we we might end up somewhere tonight under these sheets. I gotta tell you something. I have gonorrhea, or have had gonorrhea. What is my proper response? Or how does that conversation go?
Hold on. Before you answer that, I'm sorry. Can we go back to how you would appropriately say that? Because I think that it's important that people listening or tuning in know if you have an STD, how you can communicate that to someone else that you're dating, and feel comfortable doing that. And then after that, then an appropriate response when someone tells you that.
So what I tell everyone is, one, the very first thing, honestly, is safety. So do it in a space where you feel safe, because those sometimes they trigger really bad reactions, whether male, female, whatever. This can lead to domestic violence. This could lead to a whole bunch of stuff. So I always be mindful of your environment. If you feel like you need to do it in a public place, as in the restaurant, then that's where you need to do it. If you feel like you need to text it or say it over the phone, the very first thing is safety. I want you to be in a safe place where you feel like you're okay saying this and nothing will come to you. But you say it just like you would say any other diagnosis that you have. You would say, hey, I feel like, we're getting to the point where we might get physical, and there are some things that I need to let you know. I have been diagnosed with whatever. So there are only let's see, what are we at? 4. So Hep B, herpes, HIV, AIDS, and HPV to an extent are ones that we know you cannot get rid of. These are once they've been diagnosed, they are here. HPV is still one of those slippery slope ones because, again, it's considered a sexually transmitted disease, but not in the same way that like herpes or HIV is. And we do know that in some cases, HPV has gone away on its own. But the rule of thumb is to treat it like it is here to stay. So it is something that you need to let people know. Even though it does not affect men in the way that it affects women, men are carriers of HPV. So they might not have any symptoms, any issues whatsoever, but they can transfer it to other women with that. So, but yes, you say it. There's something I need to let you know. I've been diagnosed with blah, 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 blah. It is being treated. Most people do know the rate of infection. The rate of infection is very low right now. This is something that I thought you should know.
Okay, and so if someone says that to you,
So once you say that, what's the appropriate response? How do I carry this? Like, and I don't know if there is an appropriate response, right? But how do I?
In a perfect world, I like to say the response is, thank you for telling me and giving me that choice. But I know most people don't think that way because it's like, wait, what? Like, you just kind of stunned. I just tell people to just like take a second. Once you hear it, don't respond. Take it in, because our first response usually is something very negative, whether it's like, why the fuck you ain't tell me in the beginning, or you dirty, whatever, or, So I just say, tell everybody, once you hear it, just take it in. Just listen to it for a second.
Okay.
I definitely.
Okay.
It is okay to say, I need to sit with this for a minute because I don't know how I feel.
Okay.
I I honestly, God, would not know what I would do if someone said that to me. I would still have to take it in and be like, okay, let me figure this out and see what this means to me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, this is your life. I want everybody to take that minute and say, okay, hold up. Let me go back and talk about this and think about this. And you might need to ask some questions. Where are you? So when we have people like Charlie Sheen, whose viral load is so low, it's undetectable, that the rate of transmission is very low. That is a thing. That is real. That is true. So that if you decide to go there, your chances are of receiving transmitting HIV or AIDS is very low. But to other people who, whether they're not taking their medication or their viral load is really high, you don't know. If you're dealing with someone who does have herpes, they may never have had an outbreak, but the virus is still in their system to the point where they can pass it on. Most of the time, herpes is not transferred unless there is some type of outbreak, some type of sore, some type of opening. And that is on the mouth, on the genitals, wherever it is. So there are some people who've never had an outbreak that they can say, well, my doctor is monitoring it. I've never had an outbreak. So again, transmission rates are extremely low. But there might be someone who's like, I get an outbreak like every other day. And this is just where we are. So I would ask a million questions. This is my health. At this point, I'm asking.
Okay, two things I want to address: the negative stigma around having an STD. Mm-hmm. Because, a lot of people assume that if you have an STD, you are dirty. I think that's why a lot of people have that initial reaction. Oh, you've been hoeing around, you've been sleeping with everybody, or whatever the case may be. And so I think that's a lot of why that initial reaction is negative. But is that not an assumption?
It is. It absolutely is an assumption, because it takes one person, one time, one touch. Why is everybody dropping out? Okay.
No, you good. You good. Okay. Keep on.
Yeah, it takes one person, one time, one touch. There have been people that contract HIV or AIDS their first time ever having sex. The same way people get pregnant the first time they've ever had sex. Or you can get herpes the first time you've ever had sex. So it's not about quantity. It is about asking questions and knowing what your partner has or doesn't have. So yes, the idea is that you're dirty because we've as society has deemed that if you don't use protection with anyone that is not your partner, you're dirty. That's just what we have decided.
Are certain races susceptible to certain types of STDs, or is it just even across the board?
So they're more susceptible because of environment and because of resources, not just because like our melon attracts chlamydia. It's not like that. But Black and brown people do have a higher rate of STIs and STDs because we don't have the resources or the education or the environment around us to handle that. So if you live in an area where there aren't any free clinics and you don't have insurance, or if you are a child, if you are under the age of 18 and your parents hold your insurance, you're not going to go. Most of them aren't going to go somewhere and go. Or if you live in an area where the next Planned Parenthood or free clinic is across town, you don't have the transportation or the money to get there. So yes, Black and brown people have a higher rate of STIs or STDs, but it's because of resources and environment. It's actually more if you're poor.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's all resources.
So
if you guys look in the grocery store, how much do condoms cost? If you go to the store and buy condoms.
That's a good question. So you're right, they're a little expensive. Speaking of which, real quick, is there a certain brand of condoms that's better than others?
I don't personally endorse a certain brand, but latex lubricated is what you want. There are some people that are allergic to latex, so you have to use like sheepskin or something of that sort. But
polyurethane.
I'm sorry?
I said polyurethane.
Exactly. You have to know. But latex and lubricant is the best. Latex is usually a little stronger. It can deal with a lot of friction. And you want the lubricant because if there isn't enough friction, they break easier. So that's what you're looking for.
Are we talking about condoms?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna put out a quick story, and then you can ask another question. I got caught up in a situation where a girl, we had kind of broken up, and she hit me like the next week, like, "Yo, I went to the doctor. You gave me something, blah 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 blah." I'm like, "Yo, you bugging? I ain't give you nothing, right?" So I go to the doctor, got nothing. I go back to her. I'm like, "Yo, this is my paperwork, so you got some explaining to do." So she finally breaks down. Yeah, this other guy gave it to me.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you was crossing. You was double dipping." So I tell that story because is there a responsibility surrounding having multiple partners at the same time in this dating world?
Absolutely. Yes. If we have not made it official, I have multiple partners. Absolutely. Yes, that is something that whoever you are sleeping with absolutely should know. Because again, you're giving them the choice. What happens when you don't say anything is you're taking away their choice. So I get to decide whether or not I want to sleep with you, whether you have multiple partners, STDs, STIs, HIV, whatever. But you have to give them that choice.
Okay.
So
that sometimes can get controversial.
Absolutely, because the assumption is I'm going to stop sleeping with you once you tell me you're sleeping with other people. But my thing is, shouldn't I tell
that's
you?
why the men lie.
You say what?
I said that's why the men lie. I'm losing my voice. I don't know what's happening right now.
Because you lying.
Exactly.
No, that's why men lie. I had a guy tell me that before.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't. If you're sleeping with a guy, and I will always ask up front because I need to know. Like, so that's something I put out there because I'm already going to let you know my expectation is if I'm sleeping with you, I don't want you sleeping with anybody else.
Most people can't say that.
Why?
Because they're scared.
And that's a little so unpopular opinion here. You claiming some shit you ain't even had yet.
No, I'm letting you know, I'm informing you of my expectation if we go there.
Okay.
That I am just expecting you to, whoever you messing with now, if we go there, then my expectation is that you shut that down. But I'm going to let you know up front. I'm not going to be like mad after I find out, like I'll find out later because I'm going to ask up front. I think more people should do that. But I do think men lie because they don't want to run the risk of not getting to sleep with you because, you know, greedy and whatnot. What were you going to say, Dr. B?
No, I was going to say you're absolutely right. But like you said, more people need to have this conversation because at the end of the day, it's your health.
Yeah.
It's your health.
I mean, I don't think people look at it, your sexual health, like your, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, well, I don't want to have high blood pressure or diabetes or something like that. So I'm going to eat right. I'm going to, you know, work out or whatever the case may be to make sure I'm healthy in that regard. But when it comes to sexual health, again, because we're not talking about it, it's almost like it's not as important when actually it's your health, like you're saying. So it's important.
Yeah, because nobody else is talking. Think about it, when we're kids, our parents tell us, don't eat all that sugar. Don't do this. Don't fill yourself up with this. Doctors tell you need to exercise. Watch what you eat. Stop all the red meat. Everybody somewhere is talking to you about your somatic health, your medical health. Nobody is saying, the most you usually get is wear condoms, wear condoms, wear condoms. There's no consequence to when you don't. Like, I remember back in the day, they used to show you the pictures of herpes and what it looks like. They don't do that no more.
Oh, they don't?
No.
They don't even have sex education in the schools like they used to.
Yeah, and some schools that do have it, you have to get a permission slip signed. So your parents can opt you out of sex ed.
Yeah, that was part of PE class back in the day for us.
It was definitely a part of like regular something, like health or
Health,
something.
Health ed.
Health and PE.
Yeah, health education.
Yeah,
So
but we don't do it anymore.
that's one of the things we need to be looking into bringing back. Or if they're not going to do it in the schools, then again, it starts in the household. We got to be talking to our kids and young people about sexual health.
Absolutely.
So I did a poll on my Instagram about, is dating someone with an STD a deal breaker? And so 70% of the people said yes, and 22% said no. And of those 22% that said no, it was half and half, men and women. So I found that stat very interesting. And I I think what I would want to know from this is there a situation or a circumstance where someone would be okay with that knowingly? I mean, I know there are people in relationships that have STDs. I know there are people who have communicated that to partners and they still, got with them. I think about celebrities. That was one of the first thing I thought about. The celebrities that are supposedly have, STDs, like Rihanna and Chris Brown. I hope they don't ever see this video and think I'm talking about them, but everybody knows the story. Is that's why they got in that big fight, right? Am I?
No, that's the thing. And remember who she got it from? So
there's that.
Wait. Can y'all clue me in? Because I might have missed this. Might have missed this little serving of tea here.
Oh.
So rumor has it that the big fight that they had before the Grammys, was it the Grammys or BET Awards? Or
some award show where they actually fought and he
in the car.
Yeah. In the car. I remember it was a car, yeah.
So initially it was deemed a car accident. Then it was she went through his phone. But then it was Jaguar Wright was like, no, she contracted herpes from Jay-Z and gave it to her. That's again, I don't sleep
from Jay-Z from Jay-Z and gave it to Chris.
Yes. Again, I don't sleep with any of these people, so I have no idea. But that is just the story that's out there. But we can talk them. I mean, everyone from Usher to Michael Vick, all of them have been sued for transmitting herpes without letting people know. So,
and they're all in relationships now. So you can be in, like, what does that look like from like a health perspective?
Hold on. First of all, that math ain't mathing. If 80% of people in America have an STD and 70% saying it's a deal breaker, somebody lying.
It's have or had, first of all.
So you can have gonorrhea and get rid of it.
Yeah. So
True.
Like if you've had something before, not necessarily 80% have an STD
right
now.
And gonorrhea is getting like super strands to the point where we might not be able to get rid of it. It might have to go on the other side of the list.
Okay. I was about to say this, somebody lying, because that math is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, of course people are lying. That's why we're having this conversation, so people will feel more comfortable talking about it. And then, to your point, that's just reported cases. That is not people who don't even know they have anything because they are asymptomatic. They're not showing any signs of it. So they very well could be passing it to people without even knowing about it. So that's another thing.
What, 75 to 80% of people who have herpes don't even know it yet?
Wow. There you go, right there.
Yeah. Wow. It can be very asymptomatic. Very. So
what are they going to get their physicals?
No. Think about most people do not go on a regular and get their blood tested. They don't.
Doc, can you clear this up for me? Someone told me once that if you when you get your, say you go to a clinic and you're like, I need to get checked out. Is it true that they don't test for herpes unless you ask them to?
So there's a panel. So depending on where you are, depends on how the panel differs. But usually with HIV and or herpes, there's a separate consent that you have to sign in order for them to test for that, because it's not ran in the regular panel. But it does depend on the clinic or the doctor or whoever you go to, that there are different panels that they run. So usually when they have you sign something, they'll check off everything is there. And so like usually like your primary care physician, they're going to go ahead and screen you for everything because that's, you know, who they deal with, but they're giving you the paper. Most people don't pay attention to the paper and see what they're actually signing off on. But HIV is one that you absolutely have to have a separate consent for to sign off on for them to run it. And in some cases, herpes is included in the panel, and in some cases it's not. Like I said, it just depends on where you are.
Don't you have to have blood work to test for HIV and herpes?
Yes.
It requires blood work, right? You can't just
unless there's an outbreak that a doctor can see.
Oh, well, that's something totally different, I guess.
When is the appropriate time? Say like you're dating somebody, right?
Yes.
When is the appropriate time to show them your papers? Yeah, I got a clean bill of health, Sean.
I think there are probably like 2 or 3 different times, honestly. Probably when we start dating, it's a conversation that needs to be had. Then when you are exclusive, then that's another time to get tested. Because in the beginning, if you're talking or just dating, you're not exclusive, there's no expectation that I'm the only person. So even between the time that we started talking to the time that we had sex, a whole lot of stuff could go down. So I believe there are multiple times, but absolutely, when you become exclusive, that is something I tell people: go together. Let's go get tested. Let's go.
Have anybody on here ever been asked to show their my chart or ask someone to show their my chart to you?
I volunteer mine.
At what point do you volunteer to show your my chart?
It depends on different times, but to Dr. B's point, I usually do it when I know I'm trying to be serious, intent. I go ahead and no, listen, I'm just trying to deal with you and you only. This is my papers, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah, like, and I've had, I don't ask the woman to do it, right, per se. Maybe I should. I don't know. The hope is, like, for me, I never ask somebody to do anything that I wouldn't do. So if I do it, the hope is they follow suit.
You're okay with it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, would it be a red flag, or would you be not okay if they refused to do it? If they felt like
I think so. So it gets interesting, right? Because then I also look at and dive into their history, right? And maybe this is not a good thing, but to me, because this kind of goes against what you said earlier, Dr. B, to me, the lower the numbers, the less likely you had a possibility you got something, right?
the lower
Which
numbers.
which is anti what you said earlier, Dr. B. What'd you say, Karen?
I said when you say the lower the number, are you referring to body count?
Yeah, as in, and not just body count and relationships, right? If you've only had 6 relationships, 2 of them marriages, then I'm gonna be like, it's probably a good chance she's, Now, if you tell me you ain't never been married, you've been out in these streets dating, woo 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 woo, I'm like, hey.
Why would you just ask her to do it? Period.
I should do that.
Do you feel like that it's going to be offensive to her? Do you feel like?
I feel like it could be.
It's your
because you gotta understand the stick. Are you calling me a hoe? Nah, I'm just, you didn't have a lot of dicks.
I can't, and I won't with you.
You're 100% right. But I'd rather offend you by asking you than me get stuck with something for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. That's true too.
Right.
And I also feel like if someone, why wouldn't someone be okay with getting tested or showing you testing results? Like, what would be the reason for that?
But Carolyn, at the same time,
there's a lot of reasons why people don't want to tell anything to people. Maybe religion. They might feel offended. Privacy. Like, you'll be surprised the things that people say or will do or use to say, you know what, that part of my life is private until it isn't.
Yes, but let's. So
I'm not condoning that. I'm not condoning it.
I get that, but I hear this a lot. It's so private. It's so this. If you can stick your private part in somebody else's mouth, you can ask them this question. It ain't that private anymore. Like, if you're willing to engage in sexual acts, then it's not that private anymore.
Right.
This is the most private you can get.
I agree with that.
And I think that's part of our issue, is that society has deemed this as not a sensitive issue. It's not a private, it's sex is so like, but this is what we do, but I can't tell you my business. Like, we have somehow separated the two when they should be together.
I agree with that, because it's an intimate space, right? Like, if you're going to sleep with somebody, like, I don't understand why you can't have a conversation with them about, their sexual health. Me personally. Jameis, you were going to say something, and I think you got cut off. Do you remember what you were going to say?
Is he frozen?
I think he is. That's a good
frozen.
Frozen in, right? He was like,
so let me ask you something, right? Is there ever a possibility? Oh, this might be a really stupid question.
There's no
like
questions.
Sex in pools or ocean or sex in odd places. Does that affect anything? In particular, I really want to understand the pool, like in water, like. Like
most bacteria, viruses, it can't live outside the body. Most of them, yeah.
Because I would never get in a Vegas pool. Like, I would never get into a Vegas pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for putting that in my head.
Right, I know.
Listen, if you Google or YouTube Vegas pools and bacteria,
never mind.
Right.
Oh my God.
Never
Super
mind.
good now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, always some type of small, chance of transmission, but usually once most of this stuff is airborne, you don't have to worry about it. But there are other things that people forget too. So when we talk about STDs and STIs, we're not just talking about like intercourse in that sense. One thing that I stress is dental hygiene of your mouth, because that opens up so much that we don't talk about. Whether it's a cut, a cold sore, whatever, this is a place that holds. It is a warm, moist place that allows bacteria to grow and thrive.
I heard something crazy, Dr. B, where they said a woman's vagina is also like they're almost the same.
So your mouth, a woman's mouth, well, everyone's mouth and your vagina, they're self-cleaning too.
Okay.
So this is one of the things that they're working for us while they're working, while they're just out there, I don't know what you call it. But yeah, it's very similar, that moist, warm place to put something. But it also holds stuff. So if you think about your mouth, you're so sensitive.
It's a mess.
A lot of people don't know about like mouth care, dental care, and hygiene is that you are not allowed to have a lot of major operations unless your teeth are in pristine shape. Like, you have to get reports and everything from your dentist, because it is one of the quickest ways for something to travel to your heart, to your lungs, to vital organs. So when people go through chemo, when you go through open heart surgery, any type of surgery, you have to get that okay from your dentist first, because it's one of the quickest ways to carry bacteria through your body. So when you're dealing with one and their mouth isn't all together, they're putting that mouth not only in your mouth, but on your genitals. And you don't know if they have cuts, they have this, you have what, you're just opening yourself up to even more things. So I am a big mouth person. I am like, let me see your mouth, let me see your teeth, like, what we doing? Do you go to the dentist? It's one place that people don't think about. Like, yes, I want to see your papers too, but open your mouth. Let me see. Okay.
So a lot of people feel, and the concept of kissing is one of the most intimate things that you could do, and some people don't even like to kiss.
Yeah, that might be.
So I mean, after the first date, second date, when can you start kissing, or should you just let it flow and just not worry about it?
Again, It's you. It's something you got to talk about. It's something. Do you feel comfortable? Well, not comfortable. You should feel comfortable, but at some point, you got to say.
Do you talk about that though? That's mad awkward.
No, I've only when I mean I am a sex therapist, so when I hear about these types of conversations, it's only been when you can tell something is wrong, whether it's a strong odor or you can see the plaque build up or a rotten tooth. It's like to that point where it's like, okay, you can't touch me because what's going on here? On regular, most people don't worry about it unless they see something, but we need to start asking questions like, what's that right there? Are you okay? I'm just saying, we gotta start asking questions because we
Do
loud.
you point to? Do you point?
Oh my goodness. I can't with you. Okay, Dr. B. So okay, I want to go back to this 22% of people who it's not a deal breaker if someone has an STD. So what does sex look like when one partner has an STD and another partner does not?
Carolyn, your voice has an STD.
I know. I don't know what's going on with me. It's so raspy right now.
It's all about safety. Most of the time, if you are protecting yourself, then the transmission is very low and it doesn't happen. We have gotten to a point where society has been able to put up all types of barriers and medications that we are bringing down these transmission rates when you are actually doing what you're supposed to do. I mean, think about it. We have women that are HIV positive that do not transmit it to their kids. I mean, that's huge when you think about that. Like literally a person is growing inside of a woman that is HIV positive. And we have made it so that this child is not. So we've come a very long way with medication. Very, very long way. So when you are being safe, it's just like anything else. It's just like any other sex life. One of the big ones with herpes, the biggest thing is if there is any type of outbreak, you cannot do anything. That is, it doesn't matter if you are using condoms. It doesn't matter if they're women condoms, men condoms, any type of barrier. It can still be transmitted. So.
And does that include no kissing too, right?
Right, no kissing.
Okay. What about a yeast infection?
So, okay. So you should not have sex during a yeast infection because it just makes the yeast infection worse. It doesn't transmit anything. It's just she's not going to be comfortable. It just doesn't feel good. It's not a good thing.
Okay. I mean, I know some things that doesn't. I mean, listen, it's some nasty women out here.
Absolutely, and some nasty men. Like when we get into fetishes, oh my god, I've dealt with.
There's a yeast infection fetish.
Oh, there are period fetishes where men suck the tampons.
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
That's not.
Like
no, because this is about dating and and sex and all that. How do you bring up that fetish? Like, how does that come up? Like, especially if you have, or especially if you have STD, or you're trying to maybe, or just in the spirit of safety.
Yeah.
Like, how does that, like? I guess you gotta talk about that sort of stuff too.
Absolutely. So again, in this day and age with technology, we do have dating sites that specialize in this, whether it's a fetish or whether it's an STD or STI. There are specialized dating sites, specialized words and stuff that you put up there that says, this is where I am, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I have. So it kind of opens that door before you actually have to. So there is that. But sometimes it starts as like this joking, ha ha ha, I will. And then they like, no, I was for real. And oh, okay, like this is what you enjoy. And if the person is into it, like, all right, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see where this goes.
Oh my goodness.
You're gonna drop the slice of bread emoji in their DMs.
So the folks who like to swing or go to sex parties and stuff like that, like, how does that work? Should you make sure that the swinger party you go to has some sort of like disclaim, like how do you make sure you're safe in those arenas?
Absolutely. So a lot of the clubs, they do have, you have to fill out stuff, you have to go through things. But also within a couple, like with swingers, there's usually some type of contract. And when I say contract, I just mean like rules that we say, okay, we're in an open marriage or we're in a swingers marriage or whatever the case may be. But these are the guidelines. Whoever you sleep with I need to see their paperwork. They have to do this every 3 months, or you need to do this, or this has to happen. So usually it's something that's talked about before you go, if you're a couple. And usually with the clubs, they have very specific rules and regulations to make sure that people are safe. Again, it is still on you to have certain rules and things that you want to say. But most of the time, this is why people will pay these high prices for these type of clubs, because they're doing all that behind the scene works for you.
How should you, okay, say you're in a relationship with someone and you've been, because we know that like people who have STDs, they could get it and not know. It could be, it could come about later. So say you were dating this guy 3 months ago. Now you're dating this guy and you guys decide to become intimate. And if one of you pops up with an STD, like how do you recommend that people handle that type of situation?
Again, it's up to you. I think that people give a lot more leeway to something that can be cleared up. So if you are talking like, gonorrhea, chlamydia, something in that sort where it is, or even syphilis, where you can take a shot or take a pill, it's more like, okay, well, this is the starting point. Like, okay, so we know that you had this. It's been 3 weeks. You're retested. You're fine. It's us from now on. A lot of people, that doesn't bother a lot of people. Because so many people go through it. And some people probably have had an STI and didn't know it. There are some doctors, especially on college campuses, that are like, okay, your test hasn't come back, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you these pills. Go ahead and take these and we'll see what happens. So there are times where people don't know that they've been treated for something. It is just a matter of, oh, it sounds like it could be this, so we're just going to go ahead and fill you up with this. And then there are there are, tests that can come back positive and they're truly negative, but a lot of other stuff mimics stuff as well. So syphilis is, if you do not catch syphilis early, it can turn into a lot of things. It can turn into dementia. Like syphilis really eats away your brain at the end of the day. That's truly what it does. So you start to get dementia and you're just completely gone. And at a certain point, penicillin no longer works. So
aren't syphilis numbers on the rise?
They are,
based on what I researched.
I think it's just a lack of either education or protection. But syphilis, it's one of those things that it didn't go away, but we have penicillin. So it's like, okay, we know what cures it, but people aren't getting tested like they should. So it's able to keep popping up every now and then. So you'll get a pocket, you'll hear like, oh, Philly's got this wave of syphilis. And then next year it's like, okay, we're done with it. Maybe the city will pop up with it later on in the year. But syphilis can be cured with penicillin. You got to go get tested. But one of the biggest issues with syphilis, it's asymptomatic. You don't know unless you get tested.
Wow. So it's like a silent
thing. A lot of people are, especially in men. Most men can carry an STD for years and not have any type of symptom. We talk about the burning when you pee, but yes, that is a symptom. But most of the time, you don't have it.
Interesting.
That's why it's easy to pass along. I don't know anybody. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that when it burns when you pee, I'm sure it burns when you have sex. And I feel like if you knowingly do that, you don't want to have that feeling. But if you don't have that feeling, you're going to keep going.
Wow. This is a lot. Over there, no words at all.
So when I first started, so almost 20 years ago when I first started, I was in group homes. I used to be a therapist in different group homes in Baltimore. And one of the things that I realized was that our teenagers had no idea about sex education, but they also had no idea what was normal. So I used to like have to have them go into the bathroom with mirrors, look at their vaginas, look at their penis, look at their anus, so they could see what was normal, because they wouldn't know if something was wrong, because no one had ever taught them like this is a smell, like discharge is normal, this kind of stuff. They had no idea. So you have to educate while things are normal so they know when something's wrong. They need to know what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to smell like, what it's supposed to feel like, what discharge is normal versus discharge that's not normal. Because what's happening is when something is wrong, they don't know because they were never taught what normal is. Then, especially as women, whether it's a yeast infection or BV, or you might just have like a really bad wax rash or something, they are so scared to say something because they do think it's a STD or STI that they don't get it looked at. And so you're sitting with something that was probably nothing in the beginning that now is turning into something else because they were too scared to say, hey, what's a yeast infection, or what's this? I think I need to go to the doctor. And then you have a group of people that don't go to the doctor because they're afraid people are going to say, what have you been doing? What are you out here doing? I mean, imagine, I don't know about your families, but I could not imagine me at 14, 15 years old going to one of my parents and saying, I need to go to the doctor because something's wrong down there. I think it's a yeast infection. And they'd be like, oh yeah, it's probably just a yeast infection. You're probably going to get called out for all kind of fucking that you're not doing, sucking that you wish you was doing. Like, it's not something that made comfortable. So education definitely starts. It starts with the education. And to be honest, I'm all about scaring people into safe sex. I want them to see the pictures. I want them to understand, how painful this can be and what it can do to not only your reproductive system, but it can make you sterile. You can't have kids if it goes on. It's another thing syphilis does. It makes you sterile.
Wow.
And I think that's why, like you said, the sex education and the health education is so important in the school system. It should be taught there by professionals like yourself, because, we're in a day and age where there's a bigger push for, it's my child, I'll teach them accordingly how I see fit. But at the same time, as a parent, you're not always equipped with the knowledge and the information or the resources or the capability to teach these kids these things that are so important. I mean, I stumbled through the sex talk with my kids the same way my parents stumbled through it. I didn't have resources. I didn't have, what was that movie they used to show back in the day? The Miracle of Life or The Miracle of Birth or something like that. I didn't have that. I didn't have that on hand to show my kids, But it's stuff like that that they actually need, is like you said, when they get out into the world and they start doing things with their own bodies outside the purview of their parents, they're going to need to be able to make the best decisions possible.
Absolutely. One thing that I do is I teach parents how to talk to their kids about sex, because parents are like, I don't know what to say. Like, I never got that talk. Like, what do I say? What do I do? And especially at the different ages, like I said, it's age appropriate language, but you got to do it. You have to keep going. It was a point in time that my family used to laugh. If my kid went to daycare, I didn't care if they were with their grandmother, with their aunt, his damn daddy. And I would be like, did you have fun? Did anybody touch you? And he'd be like, nobody tried to touch my penis. Nope, nobody tried to touch it. And everyone used to be like, why is he saying that? And I'm like, because it's our routine. I ask him every day, did anyone try to touch your penis, or did anyone try to make you touch theirs? Because I need him to know that when something like that happens, you haul ass to mommy. But we've made that so uncomfortable that our kids don't know how to say that to us or talk to us. So I had to tell him, you don't have to yell it, but thank you for that. Because family members would get offended. Well, did you think I was having? No, it don't got nothing to do about
Well, this is the same reason why I think why it's not in schools. People don't want their kid being exposed to it.
Yeah.
Has there ever been any situation? Well, no, it's not really into dating. I was gonna. Never mind. Go ahead. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I did have a question. From the I don't know. I don't think we touched on this. We touched on from different angles, but if you are someone who's dating someone and they gave you something, how do you have that conversation? What do you say? Like, what strategies or whatever the case may be? Because I know people who have gotten something and it was curable, but they did not relay that back to the person that gave it to them because they
Mm.
were embarrassed, scared, or whatever, didn't know how they were going to react or whatever the case may be. So, how do you have that conversation?
So that is absolutely very
Oh, hold on. We're getting some feedback. Okay, I think it's clear now.
Okay. I've absolutely have seen that way too many times than I can count. That, you know, they will study and just deny and say, nope, you gave this to me. I didn't do this. Like when the other person does find out. And this is a thing that, you know, it's a casualty of casual sex, is that, you know, we are too scared to rock the boat with people that we don't have that connection to. Because I feel like in a true partnership, in a true relationship, that should be that should be who you run to. That should be the person that you like, hey, this shit must have been dormant or whatever was going on. But if that's not your person, I'm like, maybe you should rethink who you're having sex with. Maybe this isn't the person that you should be having sex with if you can't say, these are my concerns. These are not my concerns. I'm going to share a personal story, and it ended up being a really, really good story. But this was years ago before my kid. And I was dating this guy, and we were definitely physical. And I remember I had a doctor's appointment, and I had an intern, and it's a whole other story. But this intern asked me if I have ever had syphilis. Have I ever been diagnosed? Am I taking medication? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, why would you ask me about this? And she was like, well, some level came back high. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And she's like getting ready to like call the doctor in to get the penicillin. And I'm going crazy. While I was on the table, I called him and I was like, hey, we got to talk. I'm sitting there. They talking about syphilis and what the hell? You got to tell me, like, when the last time you did this? And let me tell you, this man was so amazing. He was like, well, calm down. He's like, last time I got checked, there was nothing there. He said, but let me call my doctor right now. Called his doctor while I was still paranoid on the table. He's making his way to the doctor to get tested because he's like, I don't know. I'm going to tell you what I know. The last time I was clean, but you over here going crazy. It ended up being like, so this is what I'm saying. A lot of things can mimic STDs in the sense of levels and all this other stuff. But I was pre-diabetic and a whole bunch of stuff. So the level that she was looking at was my actual glucose level that spiked, that can mimic something. So when they actually did the actual syphilis test, it came back negative. But besides the fact that I cussed that entire office out from head to toe, I realized that the guy that I was with, I was like, he is a real grown-up.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have had that reaction. If he would have called me, I don't think I would have been as calm and collective as he was. Mm-hmm. And even when I told him, you know, okay, the test came back. Matter of fact, I put my doctor on the phone. I was like, you talk to him. But he was like, okay. So the doctor told him, like, well, you don't have to get tested. And he was like, no, because she's going to go crazy if I don't. I'm still going to get tested. Let me go ahead and clear it up. But I could not, and I feel bad for me because I don't know where I would have been. But that showed me that anybody that I'm with needs to have that type of reaction. That if I'm too scared to have that call or conversation with you, I don't need to be sleeping with you. I don't need to be with you. So everybody is different. But when we get into this area of casual sex, we don't know our partners as well as we should. We don't have that friendship base. We don't have that, I'm caring about your health, your mental health, your somatic health, and you. We have that, you are pleasure for me, And once that is over, I'm gone. So I think it has a lot to do with our partners and our interaction in our relationship with them, because that should be a conversation you can have like that. So.
I love that. I mean, and not to shame or judge anyone who has casual sex, that's always your business. But I definitely agree with that. Like, one of the things that I always, and I've been reckless in the past, like as far as, unprotected sex, I will admit that in the past, years ago. But one of the things that I always knew was if I did get something, I knew where it came from. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I was never moving around with multiple people at one time. And so that somehow in my mind justified me being reckless, which is very silly. But because if I got something, did it matter where it came from? Now I have something and I'm just messed up. But so don't think like that.
Right, exactly. And like you said, it's no shame on casual sex.
No.
It is about the communication that you have with the person that you're having casual sex with.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with casual sex, but you have to be able to have those conversations. You can't be shy out here having casual sex, scared out here having casual sex. Like, stand on it. Okay, well, this is what we're doing, so I need to see your paperwork because this is strictly physical. So let's get to the physical part.
Let's get physical.
I love it. Last question. I read that there can sometimes be false test results, inaccurate test results. So can you speak on that a little bit? I don't know how frequently it happens or whatever the case may be, but kind of similar to your situation. Is there a situation where you could possibly have a false positive or a false negative, I guess is what it's called? And if that happens, what's the best course of action?
So first, I want to make sure we understand I am not an MD. So I don't want this coming out as MD. This is PhD. But yes, that happens a lot. Most of the time, the doctors that I do work with, when I have to send people, whether it's to clinics or to change their primary care physician, they do have a multi-test system. It would just be like a pregnancy test as well. They may do a blood test and then a urine test. Or if it is very slight or if something is off, okay, we're going to do it again. Most of the time when you get a positive, they're going to test you again. There's going to be some type of second follow-up or something of that sort. So like I was saying with HPV can go away just as quick as it came. So you could get tested on Monday and they say, okay, you came back positive for HPV. We're going to start treatment on Friday. You come back on Friday, they test you, HPV is gone. Okay, it's no longer there. So I say that to say there are definitely multiple times that they are testing. And especially if they are doing a test twice in the office or in the lab, you are still going to follow up within the next 30 to 60 days. Usually they follow up again to make sure that we are looking at still the same thing. And also if we may be looking at something more. A lot of our diagnosis is about time. So if I have unprotected sex on May 1st and I get tested on May 15th, it might not be there yet. So I would have to come back and get tested again. It all depends on certain people's bodies. The same thing with pregnancy. They usually say 2 weeks. You can detect pregnancy as early as 2 weeks, but most of the time people don't know until like 3 months. So it really just depends, but it does happen. But there's usually a multi-test process with it. And if not, make sure they do it. It's nothing wrong with saying, I want a second opinion. I want something else done. I'm going to go here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying that. Like, this is your health. And I need us to get more serious about our sexual health. There's no way that you would go in and the doctor is telling you, you need open heart surgery right now. And you're like, but I've never had any heart issues. What are you talking about? You would ask questions. You would want a second opinion. You would say, hold up, we got to talk. We're not doing that with sex at all. So,
well, hopefully this conversation has, informed people, kind of made them feel a little bit more comfortable communicating, taking their sexual health more seriously, and kind of like dispelling some of the myths and stigmas, negative stigmas around having an STD. So we're gonna wrap it up. If no one has any other more questions, Jay Mitch, we'll start with you for final thoughts, and then Dr. B, and then me and Jay will close this out.
Absolutely.
I don't have any questions. I appreciate Doc for coming on. She broke down a whole lot of stuff that was new to me and confirmed some other things. I appreciate this talk. It's very much needed because there's a lot of traffic on them streets right now. A lot of traffic.
Absolutely.
It's getting hot outside too, so it's gonna be even more traffic.
Right.
I did something. No. But one thing that I do want to stress is that you absolutely can have a happy sex life, whether you test positive for STD, STI, HIV, or AIDS. It does not stop your pleasure. It doesn't have to, as long as you are safe. And then you get creative. If it is a time during an outbreak, you find different ways to being intimate. If there is a higher viral load, you find different ways to be intimate. So it doesn't necessarily stop the show, especially when there are so many curable ones. It's a matter of getting tested. So it is just stop. You might have to sit down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the tops, but this is what happens. So you can absolutely enjoy sex while dating with STIs. You absolutely can. You just have to be safe. My biggest takeaway is ask questions. Please communicate with your partner, talk, and don't lie. Give them a choice. Let them know what's up there. And as always, if you can't do this, call me. I am a whole sex therapist. This is what I do. I teach people how to communicate. I have those hard questions. Sometimes I'm in the house with the hard questions. They're like, can you have this conversation with us? Absolutely. We're gonna have a couple sessions and I'll do the hard talk. So it's possible. And we out here, so come find us.
I love that. I'm trying to put your website in the chat. It's Skinfolk Therapy, right?
Skinfolktherapy.com.
All right, so I put Dr. B's website in the chat. See her. She's amazing. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. As always, we love you. Dr. B, appreciate you so much. I feel like I learned a lot, so hopefully other people did too. And I think coming into this conversation, I was asking myself the same question that I put on my poll. Would it be a deal breaker for me to deal with someone if they had an STD? And now I think maybe I would be more open to it, that I've heard the conversation that we've had. It does take mature, grown people having like adult conversations. But I appreciate the information, and I definitely think that it's important for us to be focusing on our sexual health, and taking that as just as seriously as we do all of our everything else as far as our health is concerned. So come back anytime. We love you so much. We appreciate you. Love everybody at Tit for Tat Nation, and I'm going to give it to Jay to wrap up.
All right. First of all, we're going to get some penicillin for Carolyn's voice. That's got an STD itself.
Wow.
Hey, yeah, no, I'm just playing. Love always my co-host. And Dr. B, appreciate you. Always thanks you for coming on. I know we're probably gonna bring you back again. We trying to bring people together. This love thing. Jay, always a pleasure. Tit for Tat Nation, thank y'all for stopping through. Listen, y'all out here, this is another reason why we need to get together so we can bring down these STD rates, because y'all sleeping around and y'all humping around, y'all passing around these nasty ass diseases because your dick is dirty. Y'all need to put your dirty dicks away. And let's get together and let's just have one partner and live happily ever after.
I love it.
But no,
here we go.
But for real, thanks for everybody for listening. Again, we are really truly about bringing people together, having these hard conversations that you may not be able to have on your own. Again, next week. Oh, what we talking about next week, Carolyn?
You know what? I'm not even sure. We gotta do a mystery topic for next week. I'm sorry, I'm not on my.
We could talk about dating and economics. What it really costs to date in this day and age in 2024.
Oh, I love that.
I broke down the numbers. I got numbers for you all. I got rates. I got averages out here, and I break it down by rural, suburban, and urban, baby. So next week, tune in. We're gonna talk about dating economics. We're gonna talk about why you ladies, what we've been trying to tell y'all is expensive out here. So tune in next week. But in that spirit, this is Tip and Tap podcast where we always bring the spice, but we always keep it nice. Love y'all. Holla.
Bye.